Hey guys, what's up? It's Adam.
And Jacob.
And we've been playing Star Wars: Star Wars The Fallen Order the most in the office, and we have some things to say about it.
Yes, we do. So much Star Wars. It's finally back. It's a game from Respawn Entertainment, who made Titanfall and I guess more recently Apex Legends.
And Titanfall 2, but...
Titanfall 2, which is my favorite.
And before we begin, quick disclosure, EA did give us codes for the game, and that's how we got to play it early. So when it comes to Star Wars and single-player games, we can say history's been a little rocky since the whole EA-Disney love triangle that's been going on.
Since Order 66.
More or less. So this is actually the first dedicated single-player game to come out of that deal, and so far, in my opinion, it's probably the best game that EA has produced using the Star Wars license.
Of the two that have come out, it's only been Battlefront. Two Battlefronts.
In our 1.5. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of everything, let's talk about the meat and potatoes, the gameplay. The thing you're gonna be doing a lot in it. So it is sort of a mashup of a few games, right, Jacob?
Yeah, like if I were to pick out a few games that it pulls things from, you've got the obvious like Sekiro, Souls comparisons with the combat and stuff. It's got that Metroid Prime map and kind of that Metroidvania exploration. Lots of doors you can't open, lots of doors that say, hey, maybe when you get that new force power, you can come back and try again.
But the one thing I think a lot of people notice when they first see this game is the likeness to Uncharted, the running and jumping around, the climbing, which actually ends up only being, I would say, a very small part of the game, which is strange that the marketing has been so much focused on that.
Yeah, because I'd say, at least with our experience with the game, I've played about 10 hours at this point. You've played a lot?
About 10 hours, yeah. Neither of us have actually beaten the game. So far, every extra free minute of the day, I've been trying to put it into Fallen Order because I actually enjoy the game that much. So the combat is actually a lot more focused on being careful. It's not super actiony and it's not very stealthy. Actually, there's not really a lot of stealth options in the game.
Yeah, pretty much none at all other than attacking from above. You basically walk into rooms, it's full of stormtroopers, and you have to look at them and be like, okay, I'm gonna attack them in this order because that's the way I can get this guy without him shooting me, and then I can focus on all these other guys. So it's kind of about managing each situation you're in. But there is no way to avoid those situations most of the time. You just have to go in and fight your way through.
Yeah, which is really odd for a game where the selling point is you're a Jedi, which are known to be, you know, the most badass dudes in the galaxy. And it's sort of difficult to fight more than two people at a time or some sort of creature or anything attacking you. It actually forces you to play smart. Yeah, and that's, I think, where the Soulsborne comparisons come in.
Yeah, the combat's probably the only part where you can make that comparison, though, because when you're running around, you've got like this 3D map that's very reminiscent of the Metroid Prime games. It's like it shows every door you come through, you can move it around and stuff. And then the traversal, I guess that's where I'd compare it to Uncharted, because there's lots of climbing, lots of going up walls, swinging on ropes, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a modern third-person game where you jump and climb things, but it doesn't have the same feeling as Uncharted. It's hard to compare that because when it gets into the Uncharted action, typically it's taking cover and shooting and all this fun stuff, where in Jedi Fallen Order, it's more sword combat, and that's when it starts to slow down, which is strange that the combat is sort of the slower part of the game, but it's really kind of refreshing for a series where it's, to have a laser sword.
Yeah, especially on harder difficulties when you walk into a situation with enemies, it's more about being aware of what's happening around you and not kind of focusing too much on one thing unless you're fighting a mini boss or whatever. That's the combat part, but there are lots of moments in the game where you walk into like a temple and you have to find your way through it and stuff, and that's where it kind of comes into these Tomb Raider-ish puzzle-solving situations.
Yeah, the game sort of is broken up into these moments where it is not all action and it's not all just run and gun, crazy. There are parts where the game does slow down and forces you to think a little bit. Not too hard. I would say it's, I don't know, third grader math level puzzles, but
Padawan.
If you ever get stuck at any point, you can just hit right on the D-pad or whatever it is on PC to then have BD1, your little robot friend, tell you basically what to do.
Adorable robot friend. Yeah. But whenever that prompt pops up, I'm like, no, I don't need your hints. I'm a smart boy. I'm a smart Padawan.
Jacob talked a little bit about it. The map is very much, yes, Metroid Prime-y in that way, but the way the levels are laid out, this is also where it becomes a bit more reminiscent of the Dark Souls games, where you take a long path to get somewhere and then you open a door and that creates a shortcut, because every time you sit down and you heal, when you go to your meditation area, all the enemies respawn. So sometimes it helps cut down time to make it through some of the levels.
I guess you probably had more experience than this, because I've split my time with the game. I started over right in the middle and kind of played through a bunch of stuff again. You've been going the whole way into new things. So you've been on multiple planets and stuff. Can you kind of talk about how big the maps are, or how expansive are they in which ways?
Obviously, I'm trying to avoid any sort of story spoilers here. Not that I think that's entirely too important, but obviously I don't want to ruin anything for anybody. But what they do in this game is very interesting is you go to a planet, and then you leave, and then sometimes you come back, and then the world opens up even more of what Jacob was talking about, where you get a force power, you get pull, push, these sorts of things that then open the world up just a little bit more. But it looks almost like, if you've ever seen a 3D rendering of an ant hill or like an Ant-Man, it just stretches and goes on for a very long time. And talking about that map, you don't necessarily need to rely on the map. It does sort of help you, but you start to get very familiar with the layout of the levels of the different planets. And it very much like Dark Souls or anything, you do it so often, you start to remember it and you start to memorize attack patterns and where hidden enemies are. It does a really good job of just sort of naturally guiding you.
Yeah, and the map is very nice in that it shows you, if a door is red, that means you can't get through it. You don't have the abilities to get through this door. But if it's green, you might have gotten some force power on some planet back there or something. But you go back to an old planet, there's a green door now. It's like, okay, I can push this door open with the force. There's probably some doodad or something behind it.
And the pacing out of getting those powers is pretty good, I would say. It's sort of a slow drip. It's pretty late into the game, I felt like, when you get force pull. But then that sort of encourages you to go back to your ship, and then you have this little holo map that you can then choose to go back to planets you've been to previously. And you kind of want to do that before wanting to check out new planets, because you want to try to get everything that you possibly can and get a fresh new poncho.
Yeah, there's, I guess, a lot of those doors that you go back and unlock might contain cosmetics for your ship, or Cal, or BD1 or whatever. Or sometimes they're force or health pickups. Like you can have more than one, what are they called in this? Stims? Health stims?
Oh, the health stims, and then there's essence. There's a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah,
right?
you get 3 of the force thing, and your force meter increases, stuff like that. Video game stuff.
Yeah, and I guess that's sort of maybe the God of War comparison there too, where the further you go on, you get a bigger life bar, and you have more force to work with and all that stuff. So we already told you about the really important things like the maps and the gameplay, but what about the story, the thing everyone loves about Star Wars? Tell us about the story, Jake.
So the story of Jedi Fallen Order, you play as Cal Kestis, a survivor of Order 66. And you are living your life on the DL as a scrapper on this Imperial junk planet. Just trying to survive and not get caught.
And that's about it. In terms of super important beats goes, you then eventually get your MacGuffin. You are then traveling to planets to sort of learn things. I have been playing the story and I've been paying attention to it, and I am still a little lost. It'll probably make more sense when I go through a second playthrough. But to me, the story, much like a Dark Souls games or Bloodborne games, like falls second to the gameplay and the action and the world building around it.
Yeah, it's the exploration stuff. It's kind of like cutscene, long, expansive exploration, and then a cutscene to contextualize your next adventure. And like the story is there, and that's something, if you like Star Wars, like it's very Star Warsy. So you got some cool characters that you hang out with on your ship. Yeah. You meet pretty soon after the prologue, and very recognizable voices a lot of the time. Deborah Wilson. That's who that actress is, right?
If you like Saw Gerrera, he's there too.
Yeah, Forrest Whitaker. They
actually got Forrest Whitaker. Well, once again, there is a story that they are using to push the narrative forward. I was a little disappointed, I guess, when they mentioned a character who survived Order 66. Being at the placement that I'm in right now, I was actually kind of hoping to see how he survived Order 66. Maybe that happens later, but I don't know that yet, since I'm still slowly making my way through the game. I'm not in a rush to finish it. That's the other thing too. I kind of don't want it to end, because hopefully this game does well so they actually make more games like this, because it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I guess it is a game that kind of encourages you to go back and explore what you've sort of explored before. Go check out those nooks and crannies you didn't stick your nose in.
But as far as a character goes, Cal Kestis, he's not really offensive. I guess, full disclosure, the actor playing him, Cameron Monaghan, is a fan of us at Funhouse and Original Inside Gaming, so that does not affect my opinion of the game whatsoever. He is there to move the story along, and I think he is a good sort of Luke surrogate.
Yeah, he's likable.
Yeah,
his interactions with BD1, it's like very much like a guy and his dog.
Very much so. They actually modeled, I think, BD1 a lot after a puppy, which makes you just fall in love with him.
Charms me just the same way.
The only real thing that stands out are the creepy Wookiees.
Oh yeah, they look like they're made out of bacon jerky. So the graphics in this game, I feel like your main character looks great. A lot of like the levels and stuff, real nice, but sometimes not quite like current games, AAA game standards, like Battlefront. Beautiful game. Say what you will about the rest of it, but one of the prettiest games out there. We've got games coming out constantly that are just constantly raising the bar on like graphical fidelity. I feel like on this one, like I was flying under a blockade of Star Destroyers, and they look like they're from The Force Unleashed or something.
Oh, Jesus.
So not always the prettiest, but that's something you don't really notice until you're looking for it.
We also played it on 2 different systems. I guess we should clarify that. Yeah. I was playing on Xbox One, Jacob was playing on PC. I did notice, because the Unreal Engine, there's usually some some pop-in textures here and there. But overall, from the art style, it does feel like you're in a Star Wars universe. There is some sort of janky animations here and there, certain little rat creatures flying up in the air when you hit them.
Yeah.
Just weird.
Cal running up slopes.
Yeah, some kind of just general Unreal Engine hiccups and things, but nothing that really detracts so much from the gameplay where anything's super busted or broken. I only had one major glitch where a character trapped me in his little force bubble and he hit himself in a way that he actually got trapped outside the force bubble, so I had to quit the game and reload it.
Oh, okay.
But I sort of expect those things, especially when you're playing a, I guess, pre-review copy or whatever it is.
And you're playing on an Xbox One X, right?
Correct.
Okay, and how smooth is it? What's the frame rate like?
It feels like it is running at a constant 30-ish frames per second. I do plan on going back and playing it again on a fully decked out PC, which is my preferred way of playing these things. But when you get a game early, you play it on what you can because, it's one of those games I was really excited to play.
And I've been playing it on PC. I've just got a normal 1080, and it's been very smooth for the most part. Any hitches in frame rate have been very few and far between, especially on very foliage-heavy worlds like the Wookiee planet Kashyyyk. But other than that, it's been pretty smooth as butter.
It is also worth noting on the Xbox One version, and I assume the PS4, there is a gamer mode similar to what other games have done in the past, where you can downgrade the graphics and put it into basically a performance setting where the game now runs at a pretty steady 60 frames. It sort of looks like it's putting on motion smoothing, which is a little weird. So it is there if you want it.
Get that chromatic aberration out of here.
Yeah, motion blur, boo you, film grain. We don't need, get out of here. We want just the fastest gameplay. So once again, yes, the option is there if you want it. But because I was playing this in a living room setting, I kind of just wanted the big, beautiful game experience.
One really nice thing though, on either system is that it's a game that kind of hides its loading screens. It's like, oh, I gotta walk through this crack and it takes 10 seconds for some reason, or you're walking through a long hallway or a really big elevator or something. So it kind of hides its loading screens, so it never really takes you out of the game or feels like you're slamming into a wall or something. The only thing I guess I can think of is going from planet to planet, but even that, you're standing on your ship as it's flying into space, so it feels like you're in the game the whole time.
I guess one big fear a lot of people watching this might have, or if you haven't really read anything online,
This is an EA game after all.
Yeah, and it is Star Wars, and that license isn't going to pay for itself. So is it riddled with microtransactions? As far as we played, no.
Nope.
I think there's a lot of potential for them to do that when there are three main things that you can customize for your character, being the poncho, his suit, lightsaber pieces, BD-1, the Mantis ship. But so far, all those are things that you can just find in the game. It's a very un-EA title, and who knows, maybe they're actually listening to people and saying, it's like, if you put out a game with no microtransactions, with a solid single player and some really great gameplay, I would support it. Will they? Who knows? Time will tell.
Yeah, the reviews seem to say so. I guess another thing that I've really enjoyed about this game is it's very unobtrusive UI. That's something I always appreciate in video games. And in this one, there's a tiny little health bar on the bottom left of the screen, and that's all. Everything else is told in the gameplay. Like you got BD-1 on your back with a glowing green light. It's like, oh, you're doing all right health-wise.
Which actually plays a lot into the combat, which basically is broken into three parts, is your health, your stamina, and your force abilities. You gain all of those from doing different things throughout the game, but they're very easy to keep an eye on, and like Jake was saying, it's pretty unintrusive. It's there, and it's actually one of the things that you probably don't even need, since BD-1 has a light bar similar to the character in Dead Space, where you can see your health based on the color. So I'm sure there are options to play the game without the UI HUD. I didn't do that yet because I'm still trying to make my way through it on the baby setting. But so far, what I have gone through, it is something that I might want to go through and just have a full immersive experience. Yeah.
Say BD-1 again.
BD-1.
Oh, wow. BD Wong's face flashes through my mind every time you say it.
That is one negative thing I will say about this game. You will be thinking of BD Wong a lot. So we did a pretty kind of basic overview of the entire game. Once again, we're still going through it. This is, I would call a review. It is actually one of those games that I want to go through and play a lot.
Yeah.
But I think the highlight for me personally has been the combat. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. And I've been playing on the second hardest difficulty, which I think is Jedi Master, and you've been playing on the hardest one, right?
No, I played on the baby mode. There's story and then baby mode, and I'm on the baby mode because I'm just trying to get through it for the first time.
And it feels like sometimes there is a bit of a difficulty curve, because first time I ran through it, it felt like, and this is consistent across all the difficulties it seems, the stormtroopers and stuff, that's never a problem. It's like, okay, there's just a bunch of normal enemies, but then you come up on a boss, or a mini boss character that kills you in one hit or something. But when you set the difficulty, it actually shows shows specifically what's changing when you make the difficulty
Right.
higher, like the enemy aggression or the amount of damage you take or
your
parry. That's
yeah.
what it was. The parry window that you have to block attacks.
I guess one of the biggest compliments I can give to the game that it feels like baby's first Dark Souls, essentially. I have enjoyed the Dark Souls and Soulsborne games to some degree. My issue usually comes with time management from my own personal life. So unlike Jacob, who lives in a time chamber and played Sekiro 3 times, I have a hard sort of hill to get over when I play games where you lose all your progress, essentially, if you die to an enemy, and then you have to make a long trek to get back to that enemy and then you die. Fallen Order is a lot more forgiving in that aspect, and I think that's probably why I'm finding enjoyment in it. I get it, casual scum, that's me, I know. Get good, that's fine. I'm just getting older and worse at video games, so that's just sort of what happens. But I do appreciate that this game actually might get people into that genre. I know it's a pretty popular one at this point, but there might be people going, oh, you enjoyed that Fallen Order game. There's other games that are like that are a little tougher, and this might be a way of easing people into that genre and maybe making it a little bit more popular.
Yeah, it kind of relates to that whole argument about having an easy mode and a Souls game and things like that. This game, I feel, if it came out and there was only the hardest difficulty, it would have been a Star Wars Souls game. But it allows for people who like a Star Wars game to enjoy it in kind of whatever way they want.
And with that said, I am looking forward to the community actually getting their hands on this game and getting really good at it. I feel like there are some parts that maybe feel unfair or janky that maybe I just haven't figured out yet. I accidentally found out that when a boss character rushes you and they're in the red unblockable phase, some of them you could actually do a force push on and stagger them. That was an accidental discovery, but it's something I kind of liked about the game is that I felt like, oh, I'm actually learning by experimenting and trying a mix of the force powers and saber mechanics.
I accidentally ran into was Ogdo Bogdo with his hole. He killed me 30 times, and I was just so stubborn I wouldn't leave the planet, but I got him. And I believe anybody out there, if you ran into Ogdo Bogdo, you can conquer him too.
Well, we here have actually played a lot of Star Wars games through the years.
Yeah, who'd have thunk?
And the question I think a lot of us have right now is, where does this game fit in to that library? Is it one of the top tier games? Is it a forgotten sort of stepchild? I think it's one of the better ones.
Yeah, definitely.
Personally.
It feels almost like one of the best Star Wars games I've played.
That has been the feeling I've had a lot when going through a lot of the game. It is a difficult type of title, I think, to get out there. I'm definitely a big fan. Some of the older games like Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, not so much on the Force Unleashed ones. Those were fun for what they were, but a little
cartoons.
Yeah, I do.
Over the top.
I like that this game has a serious-ish tone to it, or at least it feels like they respect the franchise as a whole, and it actually feels pretty natural. Like it does fit in there, very similar to The Mandalorian, which is a new series out, on Disney Plus, where it's like this was made by people who are fans of Star Wars, and that to me makes me feel good.
If it's possible for something to feel grounded in the Star Wars universe, it feels like that.
Right. I think a lot of us growing up, when the prequels were coming out, one of the thoughts were, oh, we're finally going to see Jedis do some crazy stuff, and crazy stuff they did. But then now we're in this Force Awakens, post George Lucas world where the Jedi and all the fight scenes are a bit more reserved. And I think the game Fallen Order actually takes some of their cues from that, and it actually kind of feels right. Don't get me wrong, there are those moments in Force Unleashed and Jedi Outcast that I love when you're just taking on a room of 30 dudes.
Just push 30 stormtroopers 10 miles away and pull the Star Destroyer onto their houses.
But there is something gratifying that makes the game, when it's grounded, that makes the game feel sort of unique when 3 stormtroopers pose a threat and you have to use those Jedi reflexes to be the best that you can be.
I guess this is a little side note. Man, the stormtroopers in this game are great because they are so unsure of themselves. And you get down to one, he's just like, oh God, I'm the last one. I guess I'll die.
Yeah, even after he gets a good hit in, he goes, I don't think I'm gonna make it.
Yeah, I had one say, I was dodging around, he's like, oh, you're real quick, good for you.
If I were to knock the game in one major way, and it's not a huge deal, I think it's just the masochist inside of me, there's not a lot of dismemberment, and I think that's sort of the tough balance you have to do with a sort of kid-friendly property, which is Star Wars, when you have a weapon that can just cut every limb off of you with a single thrust. So yeah, it does have that Force Unleashed vibe a little bit, where you kind of feel like you have a baseball bat more than a laser sword, but...
Lucky for you though, there's lots of cute little goats and dogs and stuff, and you can cut them in as many pieces as you want.
All the alien creatures get cut right down the middle.
Hope you hate animals, because you're gonna be chopping them into tiny little bits this whole game.
Yeah, but we will not be seeing stormtrooper heads fly anytime soon.
Yeah, which it's fine.
If George Lucas made it an R-rated film to begin with, we wouldn't be in this mess.
Cauterizing lightsabers?
So there was not really a deep dive into the game. I think just kind of our general broad feelings of it, because we're still playing through it, and there's most likely people out there who put way more hours into this, but
Yeah, definitely.
it is a game that I plan on playing later tonight.
Yes, like as I mentioned before, probably one of the best Star Wars games I've played. And if you like Star Wars and third-person action-adventure games, this is right up your alley. It feels like a fleshed-out, real video game.
It's like someone looked at the video game playbook and said, hey, what's good? Let's do that, and put it out and slap a Star Wars coat of paint on it. And everything from there is great. It is a fair enough sort of challenging game. It's not too complicated in any way. It doesn't really insult your intelligence, and it's got some likable characters and a great soundtrack and some beautiful visuals. So
Feels like Star Wars.
yeah,
Feels good.
I think right now, if you're not into the game based on everything that we said so far, there's probably nothing we can say to convince you otherwise. But it is definitely worth, I think, giving just a short try, just if you're into the single player genre, which
Yeah.
is a dying breed.
This is something that people have wanted very badly, and it finally came out, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, so there he is. Respawn, once again, knocking out of the park with a great single-player experience. So anyway, thank you for watching and getting to hear, Jacob and I just ramble on about a game that we really love.
Yeah, I'm gonna go play it now. I got Octobogdo to beat.
Yeah, check out the rest of the Inside Gaming channel for more videos like this and some news that is done every day of the week. Hey everyone, welcome back to Inside Gaming for Tuesday.
That's right, it's Tuesday, and we've got some more details about what Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order will look like, and apparently it's got a lot more awesome features than what EA and Respawn showed off at E3.
Cowards. Yeah, the gameplay we saw at E3 underwhelmed some people who thought it looked fairly generic.
Yeah, it felt like a pretty standard linear action game, maybe even a little Uncharted-ish with lots of climbing and melee combat.
But apparently, nope, it's a lot more than that.